Hey, good afternoon, guys. All right, so I'm going to do a quick video walkthrough looking at your notes on imperialism, which does talking about it. It goes through and talks about the isms. So it starts out talking about isolationism. I've got it brought up on my phone, so that's what I'm looking at to make sure I don't forget anything. So isolationism is talking about staying out of foreign affairs or isolating yourself, kind of staying and focusing on your own thing, right? If you think about anything from 1865 to 1875 or even 1880, that time period is us trying to readjust after the Civil War is over, after Reconstruction is over, and we're trying to work on rebuilding. So a lot of people are really frustrated around the end of the 1800s, turn of the century, thinking that we should not worry about what's happening with other countries because we still need to hashtag work on us, right? So anyway, however, there's two sides to it. We also need to start working on the U.S. becoming a world power. And in order to compete with Spain and Portugal and France and Great Britain and all these countries that have been these empires, but they've been empires for hundreds of years, though. So anyway, we need to start spreading our wings with trade, with business. We need to also start working on opening up our options and maybe look at having our own territories and not so much colonies, but territories and maybe possible expansion. So, our foreign policy had been the Monroe Doctrine since 1820, which is we're focusing on just what's happening in our neighborhood, right? Just in our hemisphere. Other countries should not come in and interfere with this with our neighborhood in this hemisphere, North and South America. But there's a problem because Spain and Great Britain and France all had colonies up and down North and South America. So we are actually going to use that against them when we find something that we want, a territory or location that we want. We're going to use this this document that we've had since 1820 as justification to get into arguments over things and even a war. Okay. All right. Washington actually had advised us a long time ago. George Washington had said you should not interfere with other countries or get involved in foreign affairs. That will only cause wars. Yes, he's right. He's exactly right on that. Okay. So we change and go from an isolated country that's focusing just on us to looking to join or become a bigger nation, have territories, possibly colonies, maybe add to the states, and compete with those other bigger nations. So here's what it all comes down to. It all comes down to a couple of things. All right, let's talk about how, mid-1800s, we were pretty much all of the continental U.S. What would become, now we don't have all 48 states in the continental U.S. yet, but what would become all 48 states, which that leaves out Alaska and Hawaii, right? Okay, so how do we get Alaska and Hawaii? Both start out as territories, but then later will become states. We'll start with Alaska first. Alaska, 1867. The purchase of Alaska is actually known as what we call Seward's Folly. Seward was a congressman, and people thought he had lost his mind. He said, let's purchase this land that used to be controlled by Russia. It was Russian territory, and he said, I think it would be a great deal, lots of natural resources, let's do it. Well, people thought he was crazy because it was actually something that people thought we weren't going to find much on, but we found a lot of gold on it. We find a lot of oil there as well. So it is worth something. Great purchase. Becomes the 49th state of the United States eventually. But what about Hawaii? Hawaii is the other really big piece of the puzzle. And unfortunately, Hawaii is a really sad story. So you know how frustrating it was with Native Americans and how we made these deals and we can't take it away and we would change our mind and all the things. Well, we do the same thing to Hawaii. We start out a business deal with Hawaii and we start farming sugarcane and pineapple plantations. And we've worked out a deal to where essentially we're renting this land that we're farming on. Well, our farmers start complaining, saying that the locals are messing up crops and property. So we call in and bring our military in. We actually bring in the Marines, U.S. Marines, to kind of check things out. And these are all excuses and reasons for why we say, you know what, it would be so much better for the Hawaiians if we annexed you guys, to become a territory and part of the U.S., but that's also a way for us to get around the middleman of having to work with Queen Hulukalani and the Hawaiians. If we just take Hawaii in as a territory, it's ours, and we can do whatever we want to with it, right? Fun fact, Hawaii doesn't become the 50th state of the United States until 1954, okay? It is the 50th state. Okay, so gaining territories, we buy Alaska from Russia. We end up annexing 1889. We annex Hawaii in as a territory, not state yet. And then Alfred Mann is going to write a book about manpower. And Theodore Roosevelt later will think, oh my God, that's a brilliant idea. If we're going to have this big, vast empire, then we need to be able to protect it, right? So we build this huge navy, spend millions of dollars with this huge navy, but this navy is there to be able to now better protect all of our business interests, our new territories, everything, right? Okay, so let's keep going. But with this new Navy, we do need to have refueling stations. So keep that in mind for a conversation that is coming later. Okay. So I'm going to intro us into the Spanish-American War, and I'll continue with it some more tomorrow. All right. So how does everything go down with the Spanish-American War? Okay. Couple of things. Let's hit the basics. Number one, Cuba is a colony. It's one of many colonies that the Spanish control. Okay. Number two, Cuba is 90 miles away from the bottom of Florida, so it is a close neighbor. So we are watching and listening very close to what's happening to next door neighbors, right? Number three, we hear the Cubans complaining that the Spanish are badly mistreating them, and we start having reminiscing moments of when we were a colony and how we didn't like being abused by a tyrant, right? So we decide. And number four is that we have business interests in Cuba. Cuba is one of many places that we have plantations that we are running and controlling. So we have American business interests. So again, that's another reason why we're going to stick our nose in their business. Okay. So our newspapers, yellow journalism, start exaggerating the truth, right? Those fish stories. Well, the fish was this big, the fish was this big, the fish was this big, right? So we start exaggerating the stories about how bad things are going in Cuba, and we start saying, oh my gosh, these Spanish are terrible, uncivilized, they're so mean, we need to go after them, right? So here's the thing, we really need a good excuse to get involved if we're going to call for any kind of warfare, right? Well, the number one reason to call for war is if American blood has been shed, okay? So William McKinley, who's president during this, is going to send in the USS Maine battleship to sit in Havana Harbor, and they're there for observation to watch out for our business interest, okay? So one night, the USS Maine, boom, it explodes. Okay, battleship explodes, killing sailors and soldiers that are on board. Well, guess what? American blood has now been shed, right? There is a reason for us to call for war. So now we have a battle cry. If you remember the Mexican-American War, it was remember the Alamo, right? Well, now it's going to be remember the Maine, to hell with Spain, okay? So we have a new battle cry. We are going to officially declare war with the Spanish. The Spanish just kind of ignore our threats before this actually goes down. So we're going to call the Spanish-American War a splendid little war because it is 90 days. 90 days. We're in, we're out, we win, it's over. Victory is ours. And we have the Treaty of Paris that will summarize the war. Okay. And we're going to ask for, after this is over, we're going to ask for some compensation because we think that, to the winner go the spoils, right? We need to decide what our prizes are going to be for winning this war. Cuba, they're going to get their independence. But what do we as the United States get out of this? All right, more later.